The American frontier wasn't built to last. It was built to be abandoned. Between 1849 and 1900, over 10,000 settlements sprang up across the Wild West. Today, only a fraction remain inhabited. The rest? Forgotten ruins buried by time, economic collapse, and changing fortunes. California Gold Rush Era, 1849 to 1855. 1849. The California Gold Rush. In a single year, 300,000 prospectors flooded into California, creating towns overnight. Within months, many were already dead. Bodie, California went from 0 to 10,000 residents in just 3 years. By 1880, only 1,500 remained. The peak lasted 12 years. The decline took 50. Miners exhausted local ore deposits in months. Saloons closed. Supply routes abandoned. Sheriffs left their posts. The infrastructure that once bustled with commerce collapsed in weeks. Today, Bodie stands frozen in time, a perfectly preserved ghost town with saloons still stocked with bottles from 1880, houses left exactly as residents fled them. The golden era never returned. Similar fate struck Panacea, Calico, and Darwin. California's ghost towns aren't scattered random ruins. They're the graveyards of the gold rush's broken promises. Nevada silver mining, 1859 to 1875. By the way, if you're enjoying this journey through forgotten America, hit that subscribe button. 1859. The Comstock lode discovery in Nevada. Virginia City, Nevada became the richest city per capita in America. Over 30,000 people worked the silver mines. It was wealthier than San Francisco. Then, the mines ran dry. The Comstock lode produced $340 million in silver, equivalent to $10 billion today. Peak output, 1873. By 1880, mining operations collapsed 70%. By 1920, the population had shrunk from 30,000 to 3,000. Banks failed overnight. Mining companies declared bankruptcy. Workers starved. Entire city blocks were torched for firewood during the harsh Nevada winters. Families abandoned homes mid-meal. Virginia City survived because it reinvented itself as a tourist attraction. But its sister towns weren't as lucky. Miners Mill, Silver City, and Austin became true ghost towns. Empty shafts and collapsing buildings, the only evidence of former glory. Texas cattle boom and bust, 1866 to 1890. 1866, the era of the cattle drives begins. Railroad towns exploded across Texas and Kansas. Dodge City, Abilene, and Wichita mushroomed from empty plains to lawless centers of commerce. Then railroads expanded westward, bypassing these towns entirely. In 8 years, Abilene handled 700,000 cattle. By year 10, that number fell to 0. Fort Griffin, Texas, went from 5,000 residents to 2 within 15 years. Ranches collapsed, saloons burned, cattle trading operations vanished. The infrastructure built for millions of cattle suddenly served nobody. Entire economic ecosystems collapsed when rail lines shifted 50 miles north. Fort Griffin now stands as fragmented ruins, saloon foundations, cemetery markers, a reminder that some American cities were built on entirely temporary foundations, dependent on a single industry that could move overnight. Oil boom ghosts, 1890 to 1910. 1890, oil transforms the West. Spindletop, Texas created an oil rush that makes the gold rush look like a garden hobby. In 1 year, 1,500 oil derricks covered the landscape. Money flowed like crude oil. Then petroleum prices collapsed, and so did the towns. Leadville, Colorado hosted 30,000 residents during the oil and mineral boom of 1890. Today, 2,600 remain. Peak to collapse, 25 years. Complete infrastructure abandoned, 60% of buildings. Storage tanks rusted, refineries shut down, workers fled with nothing but what they could carry. Oil derricks became skeletal monuments to extraction industries that exhausted resources and disappeared. Towns like El Dorado, Kansas, and Pitcher, Oklahoma, became environmental wastelands. Contaminated groundwater, toxic mining tailings, entire buildings collapsing into abandoned mines beneath them. Some ghost towns became literally dangerous to inhabit. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe so you don't miss documentaries on America's forgotten history. Railroad junction failures, 1870 to 1920. 1870, railroad companies plot towns on maps. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, the Santa Fe Railway, built strategic towns every 20 miles across Kansas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Towns were mathematically planned, not naturally grown. When the railroad rerouted, entire towns died overnight. Raton, New Mexico went from 0 to 3,000 residents in 2 years, 1880 to 1882. When the railroad bypassed it by 15 miles, the population fell to 300 within a decade. Scott City, Kansas, created 1873, abandoned 1886. 13-year lifespan. Water wells dried up when railroad stations were abandoned. Stores couldn't function without rail supply lines. Hotels became worthless. The entire reason these towns existed, the railroad, simply vanished. Some railroad towns like Stratford, Texas, exist as literal dots on maps, 1 or 2 buildings remaining. Maps still show the town name centuries later, but nothing remains except roads leading to nothing. Homesteading collapse and Dust Bowl, 1890 to 1930s. 1862, the Homestead Act promises land to settlers. By 1900, 40,000 small farming settlements covered the Great Plains. By 1930, the Dust Bowl annihilated them. Drought and economic collapse destroyed over 10,000 communities. During the Dust Bowl, 1930 to 1939, visibility dropped to 10 feet from dust storms. Soil erosion removed 100 million acres from productivity. Entire counties were abandoned. Baca County, Colorado lost 90% of its population in 10 years. Wheat crops failed for 8 consecutive years. Banks foreclosed on farmers. Children died from dust pneumonia. Families abandoned homes to migrate west toward California. Entire school districts closed for lack of students. Towns like Texline, Texas, and Folsom, New Mexico never recovered. The psychological damage lasted generations. Great Plains towns that survived did so by fundamentally restructuring their economies and identities. Many simply ceased to exist. Final reckoning. Abandoned mining towns today. Today, the ghost towns remain. Across the American West, over 5,000 identified ghost towns litter the landscape. Some are perfectly preserved, others are collapsing into desert sand. All share one truth: they were built on foundations that couldn't sustain them. Abandoned structures, over 50,000. Population of all remaining ghost towns combined, approximately 30,000. These aren't failures. They're evidence of American economic cycles nobody planned for. Modern ghost towns become tourist attractions. Jerome, Arizona, abandoned 1953, population now 50 artistic residents. Rhyolite, Nevada, abandoned 1920s, now preserved museum. Ghost towns serve as warnings. They prove that booms never last. Every economic miracle carries the seeds of its own collapse. The West was built in haste and abandoned with equal speed. The question isn't why these towns died, it's why anyone thought they'd survive. Thanks for exploring America's forgotten frontier. Ghost towns aren't just broken buildings, they're chapters of American ambition, greed, and the brutal mathematics of resource extraction. Subscribe for more documentaries on history's invisible stories.